A major conference will be held in Canberra tomorrow with the goal of fostering collaboration between business and politics on electric vehicles. It's the first National Electric Vehicle Summit. Attendees including the Federal Energy Minister Chris Bowen, Atlassian co-founder Mike Cannon-Brookes and Chair of Tesla Robin Denholm, as well as independents Zoe Daniel and Monique Ryan. Joining me now is convener of the summit, John Grimes. He's Chief Executive of the Smart Energy Council. John, great to see you. Thanks for coming in. What's the aim of the summit?
Well, really, it's about shifting Australia when it comes to emission standards for vehicles in Australia. The problem is that the big car companies set up these production lines and they produce gas-guzzling cars. They're profitable, the line's paid itself off, they make a lot of money out of them, so they don't want to change. But the rest of the world is changing. Over 80% of jurisdictions around the world have these standards in place, and so they don't get the gas guzzlers, they get the gas sippers, and they get the new electric vehicles, which are a game changer. So what this means is that rather than Australian motorists paying $100 every weekend when you fill up for petrol, every single weekend, we're going to have some standards that mean the car companies are compelled to send us the good stuff and not the leftover dregs of the car industry.
And so the key change to get that happening is emission standards.
Emission standards.
We already have standards, don't we?
Yeah, some of the worst in the world, actually. So for example, in Australia, you produce about 170 grams per kilometre. In Japan, it's just under 115. So we're missing out because we're not getting the electric vehicles and the new technology here that would bring prices down, cut emissions, and transition our transport sector.
Do you think that Australian motorists are hungry for EVs, that they want to buy them, but they're just not affordable yet?
Well, actually, the problem isn't so much affordability is being solved. So by about 2023, we see the crossover point. The problem, Kieran, is they can't get their hands on one. So you put your name down, you say, I want one. There are companies that have waiting lists up to a year and a half from the point that you put your name down on the piece of paper. And why is that? It's because the car companies aren't prioritising our market, because our market is great for them to keep selling their gas guzzlers, right? The really inefficient cars that they want to get rid of and that nobody else in the world is buying. That's outrageous. It's got to change, and that's why this change is so important.
The other key element to deliver widespread EV use is infrastructure, though, isn't it? We need the charging stations. Is that happening? Is that work happening?
It's not happening fast enough. There's only about 300 fast chargers. But Kieran, most people who own an EV are going to charge at home. And so they're trickle chargers that you put in at home and they just trickle charge overnight, or they're going to charge up at their workplace. And the next frontier for this is actually to use Australian sunshine, use that excess solar energy, really cheap, emissions free, to actually drive your car. What a fantastic future for this country.
So in terms of that infrastructure, though, is this a priority for governments that you've been speaking to?
It absolutely.
Because obviously when you go on a trip, it's fine if you're going from home to work.
Totally.
But if you go on a holiday,
absolutely,
you need to have a reassurance that you can take your car.
You do, and that's why particularly the states are actually putting in these EV highways, so actually give the infrastructure on all the major routes around the country, and ultimately they're going to be everywhere. So this is the future. The transition in vehicles is going to happen very quickly, and it's going to be profound.
Well, it's a reminder as well, the recent fuel price shock, how that can be avoided with EVs as well.
Well, the thing with an EV, right, you can run it on Aussie sunshine and wind and not be subject to the Putin effect, right? So we don't have to import the petrol and the diesel anymore. We can produce the cleanest electricity, the cheapest electricity, and run our entire transportation fleet on it. Why wouldn't you want to do that?
Do you think that these will become... I remember Josh Frydenberg a few years ago described it as being ubiquitous like the iPhone EVs. That was his view.
Absolutely.
Do you agree with that?
No question. Because all the economics. We saw the economics with solar and wind. We knew that the big change was coming. We know the economics are the same with electric vehicles. The big change is on, but Australia is being prioritised last. The car companies don't want to send their good stock here because they've got strong markets in Europe and Japan, in North America and other places, and so they send us their dregs.
So the National Electric Vehicle Summit, a couple of big aims: fixing the emission standards and getting the infrastructure in place.
Totally. And the whole world is watching. That's why we're going to have ambassadors from right around the world, the UN ambassador will be, the EU ambassador will be speaking at the summit. But the whole world's watching, Kieran, to see, is this Australia's time to step up and join what the world is doing, or are we going to stay a laggard when it comes to vehicles as well?
The Energy Minister released a discussion paper today. It's a very tight window he's got for consultation. He wants the safeguard mechanism. This is for the heavy emitters to abide by. He wants that in place, the new rules by 1st of July next year.
Yes.
What are the implications for renewable energies?
Well, we welcome this. If we get this right, it could be the thing that actually unlocks a massive build program for the cheapest renewable energy in Australia. But the critical word here is in Australia. We've got to make sure that this is about building projects and jobs here and not creating investment opportunities overseas, right? So where you have offsets for emitters, because not all emitters can switch to renewables and fix the problem, right? There's still going to be some offsets required. Those offsets need to be about building Australian industry.
So you don't want to see an international offset arrangement for the heavy emitters?
We want to see Australian prioritised. So let's actually unlock investment in Australian projects, Australian jobs, Australian exports. That's economy building, that's nation building, and we've got the opportunity through the state.
Is the money there for that sort of investment?
Well, there's going to need to be money in some form. So why not?
But is there demand for this sort of renewable
Huge demand. And so because renewables are the cheapest, right? They're about 1/3 the cost of coal or gas. Now, we know what's happened to the price of gas and the price of coal, so why wouldn't you lock into the cheapest form of electricity and the cleanest form of electricity at the same time?
And what do you say to the critics who argue that it's not firming power, that it's not as reliable, obviously, solar? Are those firming capacities there now?
Absolutely. So what we need to build is storage. It's storage, right? Because you do have variable renewables, but you can smooth that out by having pumped hydro, big batteries, small batteries.
And the transmission networks need to be upgraded.
And transmission needs to be upgraded as well. But here's the really good news, Kieran. When you buy an electric vehicle, you're actually buying a really big battery, a battery big enough to power your home for probably 3 days. So let's be smart about how do we tap into electric vehicles to help solve this problem and actually fix our energy system once and for all.
John Grimes, Chief Executive of the Smart Energy Council, thank you ahead of tomorrow's Electric Vehicle Summit. Thanks for joining us.
Pleasure. Thank you.